some amazing work has been done on QR codes.
Yes.
Which would make transactions very easy.
Outstanding.
Can you dwell a little bit on that?
Outstanding.
For everyone here? Because that's a very fascinating area.
I think this is one of the most interesting innovations that has happened out of India, actually, with our team working with others and with the help of the government. We standardize what's called a QR code. And a QR code for our Luddites here is nothing other than a set of hieroglyphic looking characters that are unique to that merchant or that consumer. So what happens is, with a simple phone, you can take a photograph of the QR code, and that becomes the equivalent of a way of transferring money from me to Amitabh for a tie I bought from him. That's how simple it is. What that does is it takes away the need for an old terminal, which costs a lot of money, which needs to be connected to a landline, which needs to be maintained, which software needs to be paid for. All that is gone and replaced with essentially a single code on a sheet of paper that is unique to that merchant. I think this is transformative.
Yeah.
And I think the government's vision of jumping on it early, of enabling it, and of making it a popular way of getting into the marketplace, I think will transform electronic payments. Now, whether you pay them with your fingerprint or a card or a phone, I as a company don't care, because I just care about being one of the providers of the interface and the infrastructure.
Okay, wonderful.
The card is just a form factor.
Okay, wonderful.
There's a macro issue and a micro issue.
Yeah.
The micro issue is that for a global company CEO, when I travel anywhere today and I go and meet a leader, an eminent leader like yourself or our Prime Minister or one of our leading ministers, the first 20 minutes of any conversation is taken up in this topic. That's a challenge for global companies, because I think America's soft power was its ability to influence the access for its global companies. I think that soft power will, in this era of somewhat inward-looking nationalism, that soft power, Amitabh, will not be what it used to be. On a macro level, I actually am deeply concerned at this sort of moving back from the international order. It's not just globalization. The institutions we took for granted, the United Nations, the WTO, these were institutions that you could argue with, you could disagree with, but you had a place to go to voice your disagreement. If those global institutions that created platforms and forums after the Second World War for countries to come together to find ways to resolve issues that were not leading only to violence, if those institutions are unable to deliver in this new era, I fear for where we're headed as a world community, not just one country, but as a world community. I don't think that's only the US that's doing this. I think the Western world, through that issue of reduction in manufacturing employment combined with this inequality, has reached a stage where this topic has become real in the Western world. And I am a believer that countries like India can actually take their rightful place in determining the future of this international order because of the leadership being strong and the quality of the people in this country. This is the time for India to demonstrate its capability in setting the trend on the international order. And by that I mean everything in the corporate world. I mean things that you and I have discussed so many times, which are easy to talk about but hard to deliver. Corporate governance, market access, open competition, intellectual property for America and for India, not just in one country. I really think it's time, and I believe that India has the capability in its leadership. And I don't mean a prime minister alone. I mean its bureaucrats, I mean its citizenry, its industrialists, its entrepreneurs, its educationalists. This is the time. This is the time.
But Ajay, if you look at it, actually globalization has lifted vast segments of population above poverty line.
And India's done a good job.
No, Japan, Korea, China, each one of them, they've become prosperous countries on the back of exports, on the back of very deep penetration of globalization. So my personal view is that we must push for exports in a very big way. We must penetrate global markets. It will help our people here. It will help country to grow and prosper much more rapidly. But let me turn to another point, and I mean that's directly related to MasterCard. India's post-demonetizations pushed for digitization in a very big way. I mean, we're seeing a lot of disruption. 900 odd financial technology startups. We are seeing India has a unique ecosystem of a unified payment interface at the back. We're seeing a lot of new apps. Bheem app, Google has invented the Google app for India. I was quite amazed yesterday. The Google India head told me they've had 9 million downloads. I mean, how is that going to impact MasterCard?
So MasterCard is a infrastructure player. We're a B2B player that provides the technology and the data for payments to work. We actually don't issue a card. Banks issue the cards. And so to me, the challenge in a country like India is the level of cash in the economy. And there's a deeper issue behind that of the formalization versus the informalization that we can get into for any amount of time. But to take cash out of the economy, it's not one company and one bank that can do this. This is too big a task for all of us to believe that somehow protecting your preserve is the right way to go at it. I actually think India's creation of Aadhaar and the unified payment interface, that actually Nandan Nilekani, we were talking about him just now, he started the work on that, about 10 years ago? And that work has created a backbone that all of us can build on. And I think you need all of us and more. What India needs to do for sure while doing this is to welcome every form of capability and technology so that India gets the best as compared to the natural tendency of trying to look inward only for that solution. I think India's solutions can go overseas. I was at a meeting yesterday, prosthetic limbs, which you and I have discussed. There is no country in the world that can manufacture high quality prosthetic limbs at the price that India does. There is no country in the world that can make a cardiac care machine that GE makes in India at 1/5 of the price of the same machine in another country. There is no country in the world that can deliver health care like the Hridayalaya in Bangalore that we can do. So I think India's confidence must come from its own capacity and capability, and it must seek the best of everybody coming in. People like you who are capable of driving that thinking, you are the reason why India will win.
So
that's the whole thing. You are the reason why India will win.
So Ajay, a lot of great frugal engineering in India. I mean, if you look at the John Decree 60 HP tractor innovated in India for the rest of the world. Renault, 118-year-old company, never innovated, designed a car outside Europe, comes to India, goes to Chennai, designs, innovates the Renault Kwid, now exporting to more than 40 countries across the world. A lot of innovation for the rest of the world. I mean, Philips low-cost sound recorder, Honeywell's turbocharger, all innovated for the rest of the world. But I wanted to ask you, my personal view is that, this emergence of biometrics, so we are the only country in the world with 1 billion biometric. We're the only country in the world with 1 billion mobile. And actually what Reliance Jio has done is, I mean, look at this, 150 million customer acquisition at $1 compared to about $25 in the United States of America. And, they're virtually providing smartphones free. So 4 years down the line, you'll have 1 billion smartphones in India and 1 billion accounts. So when I use my credit card, every time I use a credit card, I pay about 3.5%. And every time I use a debit card, I pay 1.5%. But I use my mobile, and I use a Bheem app to transfer my money. I can do a person-to-person transfer. I can do a person-to-merchant transfer, and it costs me zero money. No fee at all, zero money. So I personally feel that India is in the midst of a very major disruption because of mobile telephony, the UPI, and the biometric.
So I think technology is a unbelievable enabler of leapfrogging when you're solving for these issues. The fact is that, first of all, consumers pay nothing for their credit card and debit card transactions. This is a misunderstanding that should not be allowed to persist. Therefore, whether you pay, an Apple Pay, a phone app, whether you pay from a card or you pay from a direct debit to your bank account, these are just ways of taking money from one place to another. And the idea should be that the cost of moving that money should have an economic advantage for both parties. The idea of doing it for free is a mug's game, because there is no free ride. If you think Google is free, it's not. Because guess what? You're getting the ads, which are right in your face and are also looking at everything that you surf with all that information going publicly to somebody. So there's no free ride, there's no free lunch. Even the lunch in the college cafe was never free. And so the point is, I don't think we should be thinking about free. No. We should be thinking about the right value. And to me, the right value in a credit is very different. In a credit card, you have the choice to pay on time or revolve. There is a risk involved if you take a loan from a bank. If you want to get a loan from a bank for free, the banking system will collapse. Yeah. Therefore, it's not the same thing. Okay. And I would love to have a debate where there is logic about this pricing.
Wonderful. So, if you were made the education minister of India,
God forbid,
what are the 3 structural changes you will carry out in the Indian education?
I would promote you to be my boss instantly, so you can do all the work, right?
Well, that's a sign of a great CEO.
I'm sorry, we are friends.
Spotting the best talent in town.
We have this repartee all the time. You'll get used to us if you watch us together. This is not a new thing. Actually, it's a great question. Amitabh, I would do the best I could with school level education for the first period of my effort. Because I believe that college and business school minds have already begun to develop to an extent. And not improving school education to the best possible would be a sin for a long time. And I would do all I could to focus on that. The second thing I would do is that I would attempt to find ways to create even further collaboration between Indian schools and colleges and universities and colleges overseas. A lot of good Indian institutions got created through that collaboration. St. Stephen's College is a very strong connection into universities in England. IIM Ahmedabad was very strongly connected to Harvard Business School. IIM Calcutta was very strongly connected. You can take the best from each other and lead to an even better place tomorrow. I don't mean to do this in a way that is cavalier or that gives up our natural character or our capability as Indians, but I want to take the best. I believe that India's next evolution of growth in education will come from stealing shamelessly wherever necessary.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that is something we must do without this fear of being open to the idea.
Yeah. You know, but Ajay, I feel that the 2 areas which can be great, agents of change for India, education and health. And these are both areas which are dying out for technology.
I agree.
Actually, my personal view is that, the startup movement is really booming in India. And the startup movement, I'm seeing a lot of new technology coming in. I mean, look at a startup like Baiju, Mark Zuckerberg investing in it, Unacademy, many. So how do we use technology to leapfrog in many of these areas?
So Amitabh, actually, that's a really, talking about technology, people don't know that 14% of my employees are in India. Yeah. And they're not back office call center. Yeah. That's not what I'm doing. Yeah. They are writing mobile and cyber security technology for the world from here. Yeah. The wallets that we are rolling out, the artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities and data that we're rolling out around the world are coming out of people in Pune, Vadodara and Gurgaon. Okay. And that is because of the skill set that exists here. That same skill set can be applied not just to financial technology, which is what we were talking about earlier, but also to things in education and also to things in healthcare. Yesterday we were discussing healthcare as a topic, and the fact is that India today spends less than 1% of its GDP on healthcare, which really is not adequate for what we're going to face.
Actually, it's grown in this budget.
Exactly. And it's a large amount of money because India's GDP has itself grown very handsomely over the last decade. But I think India needs and can do much more. But to be able to do that in a way that doesn't just copy Western models and doesn't deliver $5,000 drugs that nobody can afford. Not here, not in the West. We need our models for India done for these things in a way that makes things accessible and affordable, but at the same time respects research and development, which is what tech firms want. I am completely with you.
Okay. Ajay, we've been growing at about 7.6% per annum, a little bit of a dip in the economy.
Yes,
I'm sure we're bouncing back. Actually, this month's figure seems to be good. We're bouncing back. But as a global MNC CEO, any 2 or 3 major things you think India should do quickly?
I'm not the one to believe in giving sort of armchair advice because it's very easy for someone to come from overseas and tell you what to do better.
No.
That's not my thing.
Yeah.
But I have a certain set of topics that are interesting to me. I believe that the whole topic of getting more of our workers into the formal economy from the informal economy, which is what 90% of your policies are aimed at. So whether we talk about Make in India or skilling or improving bank balance sheets or digitization or demonetization, they're all basically aimed at getting people into the formal economy. If you don't do that, the challenge is productivity will never grow. If productivity doesn't grow, growth of GDP depends on growth of labor multiplied by growth of productivity. Labor we can grow. If you don't grow productivity, you're handicapping everybody. So democratizing productivity is like a big deal. And what you guys are doing on that front, I am all for. 110%.
Okay.
I think reform is tough and disruptive. People who expect GST and demonetization to deliver in 3 and 6 months, it is not possible. You are changing and playing with something that is as fundamental as the way citizenry engages with its government in its most basic form, paying of taxes. The supply chain is getting impacted. It's going to take a few months for this to work its way through. But staying the course and pursuing the course of reforms in a constructive way where there is patience on all sides of this debate is really important. And I'm not disputing, did it get implemented well, could it have been done? I don't live here. It's easy for a guy from outside to be critical of that. But I know that the direction you're pursuing, I could not be more supportive of.
No, because there are a whole lot of structural changes in the economy. GST, bankruptcy court, RERA. I mean, the number of structural changes, I've never seen so many structural changes in my 30 years. Yeah, please.
Which are hard ones. I think true labor reform, true land reform, which requires a certain construct of parliament for it to be able to go through. True labor and true land reform are the two things that I think could be transformative in the coming 5, 7, 8 years. So in addition to all the things that you're doing with balance sheets and with Make in India and with digitizing and that skilling sector, I would say keeping your eyes clearly focused on those two will really help.
So let me ask you one more thing, because the college had gone co-ed when you were here. And now
thankfully.
And now the girls actually outsmart the boys here. They do much better than the boys.
That was true in our time too, but just we used to hide it from everybody.
But now girls are performing better than boys in every single examination, and I think they're doing better than boys in St. Stephen's College itself. But there's a larger issue of gender parity in India, because in India, the women contribute only about 24% of India's GDP. So how do we make a conscious policy for greater gender parity, and how do we push India's GDP through women? That's a big challenge.
That's all part of that productivity, because actually female productivity is way lower in India than it should be, because they're locked out of the formal economy. So you're onto a really good topic. Look, gender parity is not solved even in the US. So when somebody overseas claims that they're doing better, this is 19-20 ka farak. But at the end of the day, really solving for what is required, it starts from college and school. So educating girls, educating them through school and through colleges. You can see it happening today in the US as well. Harvard Business School, this class has more women than men. That has been the case for 6 years now. So actually happening there as well. They have to come through that pipeline with the confidence of their education to be able to take their right place. The second thing is that most working women, this is in the organized sector, their lives at work get disrupted in the peak years of their life because of biology, which determines that they bear the child. If you cannot allow them to come back to work in a form that creates an easy pathway for them to come back, which means from mentoring to connective tissue to that company they went from, to the right facilities when they come back, to not impeding their income just because they went away for a while. All those topics, all those issues are issues that need to be paid attention to. My personal opinion is that if India wants to change this gender thing, you need to put a group of 5 or 6 people into creating 4 or 5 clear recommendations and go chase them down. Because I believe that the focus that this Prime Minister delivers is when he focuses on a topic and creates 5 things and has measurements, and I know those spreadsheets that he sees with the colors that tell him whether it's good or bad, because he's shown them once to me and lectured me about one of them. You've probably been lectured a few times as well. That focus is required if we're going to make a difference.
Okay. So let me ask you, we've overshot time, but let me ask you one last question. You know, I mean, you've achieved a lot. You're the CEO of MasterCard in USA, big $150 billion company. But if you were to walk back into St. Stephen's College, just joining BA Economics Honors, what would you like to do? Something new, something innovative, something
in
different.
College?
Yeah, in college. If you were back in St. Stephen's College as a fresh student, I mean, how would you like seniors to rag you better?
Well, ragging at our time had changed quite a bit, because some of the rules had changed, and some of the more entertaining forms of ragging were still there, but those have died over the years. But I'm not going there. Yeah. But I'll tell you one thing that I still feel can improve tremendously in this, and that is my best classes were the classes with the seminars. Yeah. Because I was able to go to a professor of choice and spend with just 2 or 3 other students quality time with an outstanding teacher for an hour and get their attention. I think increasing the availability of those kinds of interactions, smaller interactions between a high quality teacher and a few students in subjects of choice, to the extent that you can do it within the curriculum needs that you need to meet, I would push those as hard as I can. I think individualized learning with a high quality professor is my best experience of St. Stephen's.
Okay. Thank you, Ajay. It's
Thanks
been a great pleasure. We really overshot time.